This is our third of 3 programs focusing on the condition of the American family. Today we are on the grounds of a middle school. It is clear that children are growing up facing some difficult challenges. And unfortunately in our society it is easy for kids to fall in with the wrong crowd or get involved in dangerous or unhealthy activities. Yet most parents care deeply about their children's moral and spiritual development. We believe that. Well, what can parents do to be sure their child grows up to be a responsible adult? What can today's youth tell their parents that might be helpful to both of them to understand the growing up process?
Everybody's just pressuring you into doing so much things. Then you see all those families that are just on TV that are just like so perfect. And you see all the new popular kids on TV. They never show the families that need the help. They just show the ones that get the ratings.
A lot of kids today have to worry about their friends because a lot of friends just kind of care about what you're wearing. It's a big fashion statement. It's hard because a lot of things are thrown in your face and it's hard to deal with them sometimes.
I agree to what she just said. Today, nowadays, if your friends are like on drugs and stuff, and it's like peer pressure, and you gotta decide whether or not you want to be their friend or not, or stick with it, or do it with them.
I know today everyone has a lot of pressures because, you know, at any time in history, you're dealing with the people around you and trying to like fit in and feel like you belong somewhere. And people are doing things that like are not always going to be right for you, and you really have to make decisions like every day. Because, I mean, every day, no matter like where you go to school or where you live, people are like, you know, offering things to you like drugs or whatever that may not seem right to you, but you have to like decide for yourself, and it's always hard to make the right decision.
As a school counselor, Sarah Jimenez sees firsthand the pressures and challenges that young people face today.
I've been a middle school counselor about 6 years, and prior to that I was in the classroom for a lot of years, and in kindergarten through 12th grade. Some of the problems that kids face today are ones that I didn't even know existed at the time. There's a great deal of upset families. There are many more kids that come with problems in their families before they even get to school. A lot more of that. I think there's a lot more economic pressure than there used to be. There are a lot of split families, and that creates some of that economic pressure, where it's just one parent trying to bring up the kids or handle 2 jobs or whatever, and do all the child care and everything. So there's a lot of economic pressure. There's a lot of gang problems in some of the neighborhoods. I think as a society we've become more of a confrontational type society, and so the kids have grown up in that. That's what they learned.
The crime is like the most thing that's influencing the parents, and the parents will like see all the crime, and that's why they won't let us go out anymore.
I think my parents are just so strict because they're just always worried about me, and they don't want me doing the things that they were doing. And I think I'm gonna be a stricter parent than my parents now. It's just that that's what's really been happening down the chain. And I'm just like that with my brother. I'm very strict with him. I don't let him do too much.
I don't have a younger brother or sister, but I was tutoring last year, and I feel like the kids, I feel sorry for them, the younger ones, for having to grow up in this generation that we live in, with the drugs and everything that's going on with the gangs.
Children whose parents get into trouble with the law are especially at risk. Su Casa is a nonprofit organization that cares for the children of men serving hard time in California's Donovan State Prison. Its program director is Ana Quiñones.
The children that we see here are 3 times more likely to follow the pattern of a life of crime more than other children, because children learn by example. We see children who have parents in prison or family members or brothers who are in prison, and they get used to a lifestyle. Most of these children come from very broken homes. I am very concerned about the future of the children, and especially children of incarcerated men, because we see that juvenile delinquency is up 38% just in the 1990s. More and more children are looking for belonging in the wrong groups, cults, gangs, hanging out with other children who do street walking, and you can see that everywhere.
Marriage and family counselor Ben McCart believes conflicting values in society are a challenge for parents raising children.
When I was a child, pretty much all the families had the same set of values. Not necessarily the same beliefs, but the same set of values. There were certain things that you expected everybody to live by. You expected them to be pretty honest. You expected them to behave themselves. And that's what I think of as a kid. If I'd gone 2 blocks from home and tossed rocks at something, I'd have been dragged home by the ear. And my parents would have been very upset with me, not with whoever brought me home. And I think nowadays you're as likely to get some kid and bring him home and have the parents sue you for bothering their child.
Crime starts, you know how you have to figure, crime starts when it's little. Kids, take something that's like, okay, they didn't see me, okay, let me see if I can do it. And then once their age processing, if nobody stops them from when it happened when they were little, once their age starts to get up in age, they're gonna be like, ooh, I can do this, and nobody saw. So by the time they're adults, they're like, shoot, ain't nobody gonna tell me what to do. I can go take this. I'll take it in front of your face. That's the kind of attitude, because they didn't got bold. They're so used to doing it when they're sneaky. Then now it's like, shoot, let me try if I'm bold. Let me, let me take this in front of their face and see what they're gonna do.
It seems that kids get away with a lot of things that they didn't used to get away with, and again, that's dependent on the family. And whether the community of friends that family has, whether it's their own neighborhood or whether it's their church environment. Parents need support to bring up kids. It's very hard to do by yourself.
Human nature says, if you'll let me get away with it, I will. But the other part of it is that I have seen time and again, these kids grow up to hate this parent. And the only problem the parent had, really, was they were so afraid that the child wouldn't love them, that they could never, ever discipline the child effectively. Much of what I see in terms of parenting failure, by parents who don't intend to fail, is that they do not realize that their actions are what teach, not their words. Parents do so much talking to their children, thinking that will change things. If they're not living, if you're not walking the walk, then forget it, because children are not stupid and they understand hypocrisy, and eventually it will catch up with you. So I think what's important is that a parent has to live those values, and if they live them, they don't need to say a word.
Well, they don't understand anything. Like I go out like at 10 o'clock at night somewhere, and it's on the weekend, and they think I'm gonna go do drugs or something, and then I'm all, what, I'm not gonna do drugs or anything, I'm just going to have fun. And I'm all, look at you, you smoke and stuff, so I just leave and don't even listen.
The biggest problem with parents is doubt causes them to be inconsistent. Inconsistent parents or inconsistent discipline causes a child to ignore them. Well, you can't teach somebody who's not paying attention to you, and discipline is a matter of teaching kids, responsibility and self-discipline and how to run their lives effectively. And if they're not listening to you, then you've got a real problem.
Getting youth to listen to parents is a challenge. Getting them to talk openly with parents about their concerns can be even tougher.
I go to anybody I can trust, like anybody that could listen to me, that can listen to me, and like they could understand my problems. So, because if I go to my parents, they're gonna say, well, what's wrong with you? And they're not gonna help out. I don't know, they can't help out. So you have to go to somebody you can trust and that can listen to you.
I usually go to my friends, just talk to them about it to see if they have their problem. the same problem usually they do and just talk about it.
I choose not to go to my mother because we don't have that much of a good relationship. So I choose to go. I either write about what goes on, what happens, because writing makes me feel much comfortable, or I'll talk to one of my friends.
Yeah, because like if I tell my parents, then they'll just like go, what, and then they'll just like get mad at me for like something I didn't really even do or anything.
Pastor Todd Substead sees lack of communication with parents as a normal part of growing up.
They may tell you that they just want to be left alone, and they may tell you that let them do their own thing and give them some freedom and don't worry so much. But inside there is a deep yearning for a relationship with an adult, relationship especially with a parent figure. And they're looking for boundaries. They're looking for guidance. They're especially looking for love and acceptance.
Journalist and author of several books on family issues, Richard Louv agrees.
That kids are desperate for one thing: positive adult contact from their parents, from their grandparents, from their extended family, if it exists, from any adults who are positive, and they're not getting it. They're getting a lot of computers, they're getting a lot of peer contact, but they're not getting positive adult contact with adults because the adults are gone. The adults are at work. The adults are commuting long distances. The adults just are often not there. From the parents, what I heard was a terrible sense of isolation from other parents. That's the defining characteristic of parents today, is that they don't get connections with other parents like their parents did. I mean, the park bench is gone. All those mechanisms, the coffee clutch, all those mechanisms in which mothers and fathers, many of them are gone. Now, many parents are creating new kinds of connections, but it's a struggle. I don't think we can deal with the isolation of children unless we deal with the isolation of parents. You know, parents need to turn to other parents. Other parents are always the best parenting experts. They don't always know the right answer, but they always know the right question. And in beginning to ask those questions of each other, we feel less alone. You know, so many times I would sit with these groups of parents, and I'd say, don't worry, this is only going to be an hour. Often these were parents from the same neighborhood who had never talked to each other before. And I would say, it's okay, you can be comfortable. It'll only be an hour. Be tense at first. Then we'd have to get all our political rhetoric out of the way. Pretty soon, parents were talking. They were saying, my God, I'm not the only one who felt like hitting my kid last week. Yeah. Say, I'm not the only one fighting the Nintendo war and losing. You know, I thought I was the only one. Over and over again, the parents said, I thought I was the only one.
It's harder to maintain your own family values. I think you have to work at it harder today to maintain your own family values, simply because a lot of the surrounding community may be different. If you're associating with people that have similar concerns and beliefs that you do, then it's reinforcing for you to be strong. I mean, to be a parent, you kind of have to be a very hard rubber wall, and you have to be firm so that the kids will grow up right, but you have to be a little willing to give and a little resilient so that they have room to grow.
I think the reason people are in gangs, such as kids and stuff, is because their parents don't set limits for them. They let them go out and do things that they want. They don't tell them what's bad or what's right. And I think they're a little bit confused nowadays of which way to go.
If kids get approval at home, then they don't need to seek it so much out on the street, because the street price is extremely high. And that's where the street price normally has to do with destroying values. Do it our way. And generally our way is not a good way, either for the individual or for society. So the pressure is there, but the solution is still the same as it always was, and that is the child who feels good about himself, any person who values himself is not going to throw himself away for the approval of another.
I personally would like to emulate my parents in the way they've raised me, because they're very understanding, they always provide for me, and they're always there for me. I just have to remember that I don't want to overwork because my parents love their work, which I understand, but I just want to remember not to become a workaholic.
I let my parents know that I'm not going to do wrong by getting good grades in school, doing what they asked me to do, and just keep on doing right. So I don't get any beef with them where they don't distrust me.
I feel for the parents who come here feeling guilty that I failed as a parent. My son is in prison. What did I ever do wrong? And those feelings of guilt and shame. Don't close the door on the children who have difficult personalities, or they're having problems, or they show aggressiveness or withdrawal. What I say is reach out to your children and take the time to talk to them. Maybe once a day, maybe 15 minutes of quality time. Life is difficult, and we are all full of problems and things that we have to take care of. But if we have children, we need to take care of them first.
What I'd really want to do is treat my kids like adults, in the sense that they're human beings, and treat them like equals and talk to them like they understand what's going on, and they're not just like inferior beings or something.
I think it helps parents and children if they talk to each other about their problems, and then they're out in the open and there aren't any secrets, and it's a lot easier to deal with.
And also, parents need to support their kids, but not pressure them. Because people get pressure from their parents to do well in school and be the perfect child, and that can be really hard to deal with.
Just remember, don't put too much pressure on your kids, and always be there for them. And especially don't close your children's eyes to the Lord, because He's the most important part of everyone's life. And without Him, you won't be complete as a person.
I think for children to be brought up in the faith is the most important thing that a parent can do. The children are going to ultimately make their own decisions about what they believe anyway, but if they've never been exposed to faith and the strength that it can bring, and the love of God and the community of believers, if they've never known that part of life, that's a real illness. And to be an adult without faith and deal with some of the trials that we all run into as grown-ups, I just can't imagine how people do it without believing in God and without knowing that love of Christ.
If your parents, for some reason, don't want to have anything to do with you because you're in a gang or something, well, there's one person that will accept you in their house, and that's God. So it doesn't matter how much trouble you're in or what you've done at all. As long as you have faith, He'll always love you, because you're His creation and you can always turn to Him for help.
I also have many friends that their parents are affiliated with the church, and the kids just have gone the opposite way, because either they don't like to go or any kind of reason that they may have. But some of my friends, they really like going to church, and I find that really neat because they love God and they have a relationship with God.
As I move around the country, because I'm often asked to speak at events, and I am often encouraged by, the school systems, the people in the neighborhoods, the churches, the synagogues, etc., that are coming to this realization that they cannot wait for government, they cannot wait for some program, that they've got to do it themselves. What you see among baby boomers is more and more Americans going back to church in order to deal with their discomfort that they are not imparting spiritual values in an organized way to their children. Now, I happen to think that people do this in different ways, and for some people, church is the best way. For other people, connecting with nature, with their kids, spirituality comes in many forms. I think the important thing is that the spiritual nature of parenting, of being a family, should be at the forefront of how we think about family.
If I could say one thing to parents, it would be consistent. say what you mean what you say, and in those tough times when you have to go follow through with the consequences, follow God's principle, and that was, I said it, and I must do it. One of the things that I would focus on is I'd tell them to go back to Genesis 3 and read about the first discipline system that God set up. And in that is all the elements of a perfect system. He set up rules. He set up limit. He set up one limit. He set up one limit. And then he set up the consequence. And then the last thing that parents don't pay attention to, and what will solve a lot of problems for most of them, is that God was totally consistent. I mean, it broke his heart, and that's the tough part of parenting. But he came back and he said, I'm sorry. I told you what the rules were. I told you what the one limit was. Do not do this. I told you what the consequence would be. And now I've got to follow through on the consequence, or you will never pay attention to me again.
Today, more than ever before, more than any other generation, our kids need their parents. They need you. They need you to be there and to just to love them. And don't miss out on that. When I've visited people in the hospital on their deathbed, nobody has ever told me that I wish that I had spent more time with my job and that I had spent more time with my career and developing myself. The only thing that I've heard is I wish I had spent more time with my family and a relationship with God. And if those things are made priorities in our life, that's where it's at. That's what our kids need.
Well, we're back on the school grounds. The personal stories we have heard say something to all of us who care about children. Our community leaders have been very helpful, but you know, now it is up to us, to you and to me. Children and youth are incredible gifts of God, and most of us wish to parent them with all the love, courage, and commitment that it takes to do the job in a responsible manner. So take hope. We're in this together. Incidentally, my wife and I are parenting 5 children and trying to make a difference in the lives of 8 grandchildren. And we're still learning, believe me. Jesus said it very well. Children are the greatest.